It's time for another exciting math video. Yay! Today we are talking about the opposite and the absolute value of rational numbers and how to find the values. Okay, we're going to start by walking from a house. We're going to walk from the house to the shop. Let's walk this way. Let's say it is 1 1/3 miles. I don't know why I put an F when I'm going to march miles. I was probably thinking of feet. But walking 1 1/3 feet is just one step. So we'll make it a few steps. We'll make it 1 1/3 miles. All right, if I go in this direction towards the shop, that's good. That would be positive. Let's say I walk in this direction away from the shop. I still go 1 1/3 miles, but am I going the right way? No. In this direction, it would be negative. All right, so this would be positive 1/3, 1 1/3 miles. This would be negative 1 1/3 miles. They have the same amount, but one goes in the right direction and one goes in the wrong direction. These are called opposites. So the opposite of 1 1/3 is negative 1 1/3. The opposite of negative 1 1/3 is positive 1 1/3. They are opposites. This one goes in the right direction. The opposite of the right direction is the wrong direction, so it would be negative. And the opposite of the wrong direction is the right direction, so it would be positive. Easy enough? That's the idea of opposites. What about absolute values? Absolute values only care about how far you go. So if I went in this direction, I would go negative 1 1/3 miles. But if I only care about how much I go, I do absolute value, and that means I go 1 1/3 miles. How about on this side? If I go in the right direction, that's positive 1 1/3 miles, and the absolute value of that only cares about how far I go. How far do I go? I go 1 1/3 miles. Notice the absolute value of negative 1/3 is 1 1/3 is positive 1 1/3. The absolute value of positive 1 1/3 is also positive 1 1/3. Absolute value is always positive because it doesn't care what direction. Opposite switches from negative to positive or from positive to negative. Opposite, the same distance from 0 but the other side. So let's use 1.8. This is 1, then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1.8. Notice I put my dot right on the point of intersection, not up here, not down here, right at the point of intersection, right on this horizontal line. I'll even erase it and make it neater so you can see it. It goes right on the point of intersection. It goes positive 1 and 0.8. Okay, so that's where the point goes, positive 1.8. Now, that is how far in this direction? 1.8. The opposite is the same distance, but in the other side. So we have to go 1 in this direction and 0.8 in this direction. And so where does the point go? Exactly on the point of intersection. Now what is that value? Well, I didn't go to the right, I went to the left. So therefore that value is negative 1.8. So this is positive 1.8 and negative 1.8, and they are opposites because they go the same amount but in opposite directions. One goes positive, one goes negative. So what is the opposite of 1.8? It is negative 1.8. And what is the opposite of negative 1.8? It is positive 1.8. Simple, simple, simple. Okay, let's move on. Opposite, same distance from 0, but on the other side. So I've said the same thing This time we're going to go 0.4. 0.4. You find what the opposite would be. Go ahead, do it. All right, you would go the same amount, but in the opposite direction. It would be negative 0.4. And this is the opposite of that, and that is the opposite of this. So the opposite of 0.4 is negative 0.4, and the opposite of negative 0.4 is positive 0.4. Opposites, same direction from, same distance from 0, but in the opposite direction. If you started out positive, the opposite will be negative. If you started out negative, the opposite will be positive. Absolute value, the distance away from 0. This doesn't care how far away you are, this cares how far away from 0 you are. It does not care which direction you go. So I'll do 1.3 this time. 1.3, and the opposite of that is negative 1.3. And how far away from 0 is this one? So the absolute value of 1.3 is 1.3 because it's 1.3 away from 0. What's the absolute value of negative 1.3? Well, I go 1 and 0.3. It is 1.3. Notice the way both of them are positive. Because both of them are how far away from 0? They are both 1.3 away from 0. Let's do another example. Let's do 0.7. 0.7 and negative 0.7. Negative 0.7. Okay. Absolute value cares about the distance. So, what is the absolute value of negative 0.7? Well, how far away from 0 is it? It is 0.7 away. What is the absolute value of 0.7? Positive 0.7? Well, how far away from 0 is it? It is also 0.7 away. So both of them are the same distance away from 0. So they have the same absolute value. Absolute value is always positive. Opposites change positive to negative and negative to positive. So I want you to find some values for me. Find me the absolute value of negative 5.5. Find me the opposite of negative 5.5. Give you a few moments, get those answers. Did you put that this is 5.5? And this is also 5.5? Excellent. Now, tell me the absolute value of positive 5.5. And tell me the opposite of positive 5.5. Remember, parentheses don't do anything. Absolute value signs do something, usually. Few moments. Okay, you have the two answers. Did you put down that the opposite of 5.5 is negative 5.5? Good, easy. Did you put that the absolute value of 5.5 is negative 5.5? No? Good, because that's absolutely wrong. The absolute value doesn't care about negative and positive. It always ends up being positive. So the absolute value of positive 5.5 is 5.5. The opposite of 5.5 is negative 5.5. So, if the number is negative, the opposite equals the absolute value because they're both positive. Misspelled value. If the number is positive, then the absolute value is positive but the opposite is negative. Okay, absolute value, always positive. Opposite changes from positive to negative and negative to positive. Okay, that's the idea. Pretty simple overall. Hope you get it.